Hello, welcome. A warm welcome to the Shopware Community Day. We're thrilled to see so many familiar and new faces here with us today. Daniel and I can't wait to share everything about where Shopware is now and where we're going. Over the next couple of days, we have an exciting lineup of talks, events that we're eager to share, and things that we're super excited to announce. For those that aren't familiar with me, I'm relatively new to the e-commerce world, having joined Shopware just over a year ago, coming from big tech and the games industry. I've always been fascinated by the motivations behind shopping decisions, a core aspect of games like Fortnite, Roblox, Candy Crush Saga, etc. This intersection of social motivation and technical challenges parallels the gaming and e-commerce industries. What struck me during my time here at Shopware is that there's something incredible here. While the games industry is known for its tight-knit network, I've discovered that our collective strength here at Shopware in e-commerce, especially within this room, is even more remarkable. Together, we build a powerful force of community. Our collective superpower is us together, how we engage, help, learn. I've been to many community events, and I'm always struck by the level of passion, engagement, and desire for people to help each other out. Whether that's hackathons, like the one yesterday, user groups, Shopware United, there's so much stuff happening, and I absolutely love it. It could be so easy to have a walled garden, a closed-off world. In fact, most software development, that's the default. A world where you must figure out everything yourself, must implement everything yourself. A faceless support ticket, a dry API documentation page, wishing for a technical change, only for the computer to say, nope, or even worse, silence. This is why open source and community is so very different, so very important. Openness isn't just about putting your source code up on GitHub. It's a total mindset commitment. Our community commits to being open and sharing. We commit to being open and sharing. Our community, you, are our beating heart. Because of this, I want to make sure we treat our community as a first-class citizen in the software. Now, I'm not ready to announce our ambitions just yet. We're working on it. Some of you know what it might be. We'll be reaching out to a few folks over the next few weeks. We'll be asking for early feedback, so watch this space. And also, Ben Marks later today will also be announcing something special too. Crazy that SCD has now been going for 13 years. This is our 14th one. Starting off small, growing into what it is today. It's an important date in our calendar, and I just want to make sure I say thank you for making the trip. I'm pleased to see Tech Day here on the big stage, where it rightly belongs. Now, 2023 was a tough year. That's not just my opinion. That's a widely held and shared version, and I'm sure you have your own experiences. The post-pandemic bubble, the cost of living crisis, world events really pushed the squeeze, not just in our industry, but the whole global economy. However, looking at our community, this strikes a totally different chord. Over the last year, we grew in a multitude of different dimensions. If we look at all community engagement activities, that could be answers on Stack Overflow, activity in GitHub, we grew by a whopping 47% over the last year. So if it feels that the level of support and love out there is growing, it's because it is, and we have the data to back it up. So let's zoom into translation. It's a community effort. We're now translated in over 40 different languages. We've had a 22% increase in the number of translation helpers. It's a big effort from all of our helpers, so I'd like to make sure to say a big thank you. Merci, arigato, sheshe, gracias, danke. Now let's look at the number of community members. These numbers are our year-on-year growth. Asia, up 33%. Latin America, up 25%. Europe, our OG home, up 24%. And finally, North America. We've been putting a lot of love into North America over the last couple of years, and I'm pleased to announce that we have grown our community there by over 52%. A huge thank you to the North American community members for being part of our story, and I wish those newcomers a warm welcome. Now, if I had to say, what's the most frequent question I get asked by the community? It's, why the hell did you guys vote for Brexit? No, seriously, it's, will Shopware keep Community Edition and stay open source? Yes, 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 yes. Yes to the power of pick a big number and double it. Coming from the games industry, I see the obvious parallel. Community Edition is our console. We want as many installs of Shopware as possible. This not only benefits us as a company for obvious reasons, it benefits everyone here in this room. More Shopware means more developers, more knowledge, more feedback, more opportunities for our extension partners. More Shopware everywhere. Why? We believe in an open ecosystem that allows for flexibility and choice. It really is the most honest and transparent way to develop software. I'm convinced it will stand the test of time. Open hosting, build it yourself, run it on our platform, call the APIs from our infrastructure, the choice is yours. Open payments. We don't force you to choose. We support all the major providers naturally, but it's an open decision that you and your customers can take. Open product, never get stuck. We offer enough out of the box to get most projects up and running. We have an extremely mature extension store to offer additional needs to customize the software with your own extensions. This is our DNA and why we believe in more Shopware everywhere. Okay, so that was some of the good. Now I'm going to have a bit of a rant about the bad. Something I've noticed in the e-commerce industry is that there is a lot of talk about tech for technology's sake. What do I mean? So many discussions and expert opinions that are focused on solving implementation details, even recommending them in all circumstances. So many discussions are about new features, more integrations, bigger and better. But I just mean we, as developers, have to spend more time wiring everything together into a mess. To build new integrations and services using certain patterns that are today's zeitgeist and tomorrow's hangover regret. No one discusses the maintenance effort for the years ahead when they sign the contract. For me, this is not only anti-computer science, this is also anti-human. We always need to bring ourselves back to first principles and think about what problem we're solving and for whom. This is why we are committed to being people-led at Shopware, not tech for tech's sake. Over the next 2 days, we will take you on a journey of how we live the life of being people-led. However, today, I would like to talk about how that applies to our most important user in our system, you, our developers. Number one, simplicity. Keep it simple, stupid. There's a lot to be said for this statement. Yet, it's actually one of the hardest things to actually achieve in real life. It kind of goes against human nature. We're organic, messy, but sublime and beautiful in many ways. Keeping things simple requires an insane level of discipline that goes against natural entropy. But here's how we think about it. Offload complexity. This is why we offer so many flavors of hosting. You can choose what complexity you offload. Single tenant, multi-tenant, open source to compile and modify yourself. Run it in our platform, or don't care about any of that and just call the APIs. The choice is yours. Your simplicity is our complexity. Simple and powerful APIs. Now, I know we can sometimes show too much of our underlying data models, but we will continue to develop them further and abstract more and more away. Straightforward and powerful SDK components. Being able to easily embed parts of Shopware into your applications and rely on that in a simplistic, straightforward manner. Default front ends to get you started if needed. Shopware should be easy to set up and can start offering immediate value. We know that things will iterate over time, so we can offer a hybrid API, front-end SDK, and default front-end out of the box. That's the right path forward because it's people-centric, not technology-led. Adapt to new technologies, trends, and iterating quickly. The app system, composable front ends. You choose which language you wish to work with and extend Shopware. Performance. Seems obvious, right? Who doesn't like performance? But to be truly developer-led, one must think about it in multiple dimensions of performance, not just the obvious like page load. So for us, this means fast and effective, cost-effective application performance, rendering, data read-write, cloud hosting costs. Doesn't matter if it's our hosting costs or your hosting costs. We've got to make sure that the trade-off is kept as a balance and we're always making things simpler and faster and better. The ability to run on multiple infrastructure, multi-cloud setups. We want to evolve with our customers' needs from simple stores to massive enterprise distributed architectures across multiple data centers, millions of transactions and shoppers per day. Choice of capabilities. Decoupling core logic from business logic. This can be achieved via additional Shopware services, third-party extensions, no-low code in the core, in the admin configuration. Not everything needs to be used at the same time. Interoperability. Through simple connections and extensions, getting stability and less update work by using the app system and APIs. But we will go further and we will rethink interoperability for the decade to come. More later. This is probably more like eliminating risk rather than eliminate risk, because there's always going to be something. But this is not really something we talk a lot about in concrete terms. Yes, I hear the phrase total cost of ownership, but what does it really mean from a development perspective? Because TCO can be used in so many different sorts of contexts. It really doesn't reveal the underlying risk and quantify time and effort. For me, this is about thinking holistically about the life cycle of development from cradle to the grave. So to extend that slightly poor analogy, I'm going to go with birth of a developer, or rather birth of a Shopware-enabled developer. Our commitment is to make it as easy as possible to onboard new Shopware developers. I know this is not necessarily the case today, but there will be changes coming to this area, as I alluded to, that will gamify the onboarding and learning experience so that you can bring more developers to our stack without it demanding your time. That's the goal. Birth of a replatforming project. There's so much risk with replatforming. It's so expensive, and often the easiest thing to do is to do nothing or just rejig the front end. But this doesn't address the underlying spaghetti mess of all the integrations and wirings that have taken place over the years for more mature projects. It's a central mission of ours to think about how we reset this problem so that replatforming can be achieved in stages, minimizing risk. Iterate your way there rather than big bang. Growth, the adolescence of the life cycle. As I said earlier, we want to offer flexibility of choice so that your customers can grow with us. Start them small, grow their volume, move them to a big cloud provider. Whatever will minimize the need to replatform in the future. Maturity. Innovating in emerging technologies and feeding disruption. The way we keep those happy customers in maturity is by providing disruptive technology that will keep them innovating close to their customers, the shoppers. This is why I'm so excited to share further innovation in this space, including spatial commerce as a development playground. More later. Now, let me reintroduce, for those that were here last year, our customer promises that we announced last year. Open community adoption, easy to integrate and run, outstanding shopping experiences, automation of your business activities, data and AI-powered stickiness. Hang on, that all seems pretty fluffy. How does that relate to me as a developer? Well, practicing what we preach, I want to make sure we refocus this as our top 5 developer promises. Open community adoption. We will commit to making the core smaller, better, and faster. We want the core software to work with other open standards. We want the core software to be scalable so that you can take your customers from inception to the whole life cycle. Easy to integrate and run. Our developer experience should be joined up, simple, for new developers to onboard. We want you to be able to spin up Shopware into a complex legacy mess, get it up and running and integrated within a few days. Outstanding shopping experiences. We want to provide the next generation of developer tools that makes the experience magical for shoppers. Whether that's unleashing your inner game developer to use with spatial playgrounds or making generative AI extensions. Automation of developer activities, not business. There are many ways to run Shopware, but we want to present an opinionated toolset that will allow you to align on the way that we internally build, test, deploy, and maintain Shopware. Not because you must do it, but because you choose to do it. Data and AI-powered stickiness. We want to provide you with tools to make it easier to onboard developers, to feel the community engagement, and to be able to share your thoughts and experiences to help the newest members of the community. So let's tie this all into the bigger picture. At Shopware, we are on a journey that I believe will have a net benefit to all. The world around us is constantly changing, and we must always make sure we are innovative and adapt to change and lead the way. Going back to our core developer-led problems that I discussed earlier of simplify performance and eliminating risk, I believe that a core central tenet of that is for us to become more and more service-led. By adopting a more opinionated way of framing the solution space, we can offer a more service-centric solutions that help with our most common collective problems. Our goal is not to become dogmatic and only offer one approach. No. Instead, we will remain flexible and continue to offer Shopware in the many flavors we do today. We want to solve those common problems that everyone has day in, day out, whether that's building extensions, searching for information, building, testing, deploying, monitoring, redundancy, auto-scaling, you get the picture. Those are the things we want to have an opinion about and provide more tooling to make it easier to work with Shopware. Again, I will repeat, it is opinionated, not forced. So if you're happy with your current setup, great. It's always your choice. It's not about tech for tech's sake. We won't introduce technical implementation paradigms just because they are trendy or in the moment. Everything we do should be tied back to the problems outlined earlier and our customer promises. This is why we are transitioning to becoming more service-led, to be able to offer more tools that you can pick up and choose to use. Daniel will share some more later. As I think about the evolution of technical systems over the last 10 years, I feel there is an unspoken mess we need to talk about. Systems always evolve over time. New systems added, other ones removed. People working on those systems come and go. Often, the whole holistic scope of a running system, a running back office technical stack, isn't even fully understood by one person. It can be a mixture of custom software, running in your own infrastructure, some PaaS systems, and probably a whole bunch of SaaS shoved in there for good measure, often with no testing environments. Many of these systems might have customizations, extensions, modifications. Some of these systems may transmit events. Others may rely on transmitting state, which is even worse. It all adds up to a bloody mess and a nightmare to maintain, let alone improve. Now, we know that extending software at compile time through plugins means the greatest flexibility, but it comes at an upgrade cost. This has meant the industry has moved to synchronous REST or gRPC extension and interconnection patterns. Great for updates as they're more decoupling. However, wiring all these systems together creates a polynomial dependency mess. It becomes hard to manage and change, and that means replatforming costs are insane. We want to change this. We believe this is the right frontier to go tackle as it solves a real developer problem of risk. This year, we'll be working on a new pub/sub API pattern as part of our developer experience program, the goal of which is having Shopware operational with the basics integrated within a few days into any spaghetti legacy mess. Just publish the events that Shopware needs from within your existing production environments. Show that you can get the basics up and running and iterate the rest over time. Subscribe to the events that Shopware publishes bit by bit and begin the journey of unpicking the mess. We want to make replatforming risk-free, iterative, and cheap. On that note, to really follow through on the theme of working together to really shape the future of Shopware, I want to talk about our Developer Incubator Hub initiative. For focus areas of innovation that we're really excited about, we want to make sure we bring those areas to the developer community so that there is a playground for you guys to innovate into. Our Incubator Hub sees us collaborating with partners to create an even deeper experience that showcases the direction of travel. In the direction of spatial commerce, and I'm so excited for what's going to be announced over the next couple of days here, we're partnering with Instoria, which we will reveal in tomorrow's keynote, and Room, which we'll talk about today. I'm really excited about these new tools. Developers will be able to take emotional experiences to the next level. These tools are real. Development environments exist, and the barrier to entry is becoming lower and lower. It's a place for you guys to experiment and see where it takes you. Unleash your inner game developer, I urge you all. I can see us extend this Incubator Hub later this year as we bring our PubSub API online, which we codename Nexus, as it will only work out if we have your input and contribution. I'm also super excited to hear what you guys think about it and where we can take it. As we look to the year ahead, I'm very excited about where we're going as a company and a community. Our transition to becoming service-led company will mean more services being unlocked, whether that's Shopware's analytics or our developer experience tooling that will opinionate our cloud development pipeline. Allowing developers to become more flexible in how they run their extensions by enabling in-app purchases, for example, will further push us into a service-centric mindset. Apps will be able to charge based on their own criteria. Could be consumption-based rather than a flat fee. This leads to better outcomes for developers and merchants and helps us all to scale. Our spatial and AI functionality that promises to save time through AI so that you can spend time in spatial doing something more emotional. Together with Shopper Profile coming later this year, we can say that we are putting developers, shoppers, and merchants front and center in our thinking. And with that, I'm going to hand over to Daniel, who will show us where we're going to go from here.
Yeah, thank you, Mark. And hello and welcome also from my side. It's great to be here again and great to kind of see you, at least for the first rows. We talked a bit about where we want to go, how we want to become more service-led, how to unspaghetti the service mess. And I don't know how you feel about it, but for me as an engineer, I always think it's the question of how to get from where we are today to there, right? How do we get from here to there, from the status quo to what our plans are? And I think the magic happens in this space, right? So that is where engineering and tech happens, and that is basically where plans become reality. And I don't know, so last year we were in this small building over there, so I know that only few of you fit in that building. But there we already talked about how to standardize Shopware more and how to Shopware become more opinionated with regards to infrastructure and to provide something so that you not only have the application and we throw it over the fence and then you are left with it, but you also get the standards and the opinion from us, something that you can execute to run it in the best practice way. And so I want to follow up on that discussion a bit. And that's basically something we've been working on. We created the first POC for it already, and that's a standardized Shopware infrastructure that we created. It's based on Kubernetes. So basically, we happen to create a Shopware operator. And what that means is it's a piece of code that you can run. So you can run it on your own machine or on-prem or in the cloud. And basically it's an opinionated piece of code that will allow you to, or that allows us to describe the infrastructure that we think is best fit for Shopware, to define the services, the way those services are scaled, how to back up those services, how to migrate from one state of the infrastructure to another, how to run Shopware in it, obviously, how to best configure it, and also how to update Shopware and how to scale it if you're running an ad campaign. And then I think that's a repeating topic. I think that's, again, a topic that's optional, of course, so it's not like every one of you now need to use Kubernetes or something like that. The opposite is the case. It's an option that we want to provide so that we are also, like with you, in the same boat to run Shopware efficiently. And I think in the past, there was a lack of those description and opinion from our side, and so we wanted to fill that gap. And what I see for that is that it even allows us to be more invested of other parts of the development journey. So think about this whole discussion of getting from code to production. Why does it need to be something that every one of you needs to figure out in their projects by themselves, right? It doesn't make sense. So there can be standards that you can use if it's in code, or at least adapt to if you want to, so that there's something that really describes the journey from coding to, I don't know, testing, staging, to production. And that is just something that you will be able to use as a standard. And then, obviously, we are running our own SaaS offering, so we have something to tell with regards to, I don't know, isolating services, making sure that they are secure, handling identity and access management. And also, this will be something that we will be investing on so that you can use it in your projects as well. Same is for observability. So once the code went from DevDocs or from development to production, you also want to make sure perhaps that you get an alert late night at 3 if something goes down. And so also for this, we can add standards for alerting, for logging, for monitoring, so that it's something that is more useful for you in your project so that you can concentrate on things that are more important for you and you can be more productive. Then obviously it's living in code, so it's versioned with all those benefits. And then also what I like about it is that you really can have all sorts of environments. So it can be dev setups, and you can even run your production setup on your local dev box, so you don't have the problem anymore that on production you are having another MySQL version where a certain query type is not available anymore. But you can also create demo environments more easily. So I think this will really be beneficial for all of us because it's a useful tooling for you. And at the same time, you have us in the same boat of describing something that you know that will run, and we can have adult conversation about like how Shopware scale in this certain case. So it takes a lot of variables away and allows us to focus a bit. So that's one topic I think is quite important and really allows us to go more into this direction of being more opinionated and allow us to create services that are meaningful for us in the project. And regarding that topic, I wanted to share some other discussions. So brief summary, so you get more scalable infrastructure, ready-to-use environments, and very important, we also want to make it open source. So it should not be something that is paywalled or that is only available for some of you. It is something that we want to make like as asset for the whole community to work in, to work on, and to work with. And that's also very important for me. Following on this discussion of service-led, and again, that's something we hear a lot. And I also think in the Shopware community, we have our own kind of discussion for this topic, and that's like the never-ending battle between apps and plugins. And I think everyone has an opinion about that topic, and from my perspective, we have kind of a situation like an Emacs versus Vim situation, right? People are passionate about it and fighting about it, and I will not tell you what is Emacs from my perspective, but I can tell you that I think the discussion is a pity because actually that's not what it should be about, right? From my perspective, in that discussion, we should talk about how we can make sure that we are able to decouple things where they should be decoupled. I know that many of you in your projects have seen or inherited plugins that implement some weird special business case that is actually not really related to e-commerce, but someone just decided it's easier for them to put that code into Shopware than to create an own specialized service or whatever for it. And that's a bit the situation that we want to tackle. So again, you can use whatever technology you want to use, but it's for us as a vendor to provide the toolings to really make it an open discussion, and so that you don't need to force everything into plugins or whatever. And so if we want to talk about that, there's one thing that I think we need to do different in the future, and that is that we as a vendor also need to lead by example in those cases. So some feedback I hear a lot from the community is, we're talking a lot about apps, but Shopware is creating plugins. And that is basically a situation that we need to resolve, right? And again, it's about doing it where it makes sense. And so from my perspective, it's really not about apps versus plugins or about forcing someone to use something that you don't want to use, but it's about providing you with the tooling you need in order to have the choice in the projects. And that's something we want to invest in, and that's also something we are discussing right now in the engineering team. And so I came up with this fancy graphic, and yesterday when we tested it, Julian, that is the awesome guy who helped me to make it look professional, kind of, like, he told me no one will be able to read it, Daniel, and I think he's right. So, but it's nice. Can we appreciate that? And thank you. So we are in this together, so I will guide you through it. In the middle, you can see our commerce core, or as we used to say, Shopware, basically. And that's Shopware as we know it and love it. And Shopware obviously has APIs, right? But what I am always thinking is that, for example, some weeks ago, I was talking to Jan from Strix, and we talked about overwriting prices in Shopware. And that's basically a discussion I've been having since I'm at Shopware, basically. So that's a repeating topic, and people are, obviously we have interfaces. It's easy to do that. There's defined interfaces for those things, but it's all in code. You need to know about facades, you need to decorate services, you need to, I don't know, implement price handlers. So there's an API, but I think if we talk about moving things to be service-led where it's possible, the discussion should be, why can't I just tell Shopware where my prices are? There's an API for it, so a standard for it, and I can just tell Shopware, don't use your own pricing system, use mine. I have prices figured out for my customer case, and I can just hook it up to Shopware, and Shopware will get prices from there. And that's one example for me for stronger API, opinionated, specialized API that will allow you to get the job done, because we know what the job is in many cases. So I know there's different customer cases, but there's a big overlap of those kind of topics that I think we need to have more specialized APIs to use. And the second topic I see is providing infrastructure. So if we talk about, for example, hosting app backends or creating services, many of you tell me, hey, we are creating extensions and we're creating projects, we don't want to maintain infrastructure. And while I cannot solve that problem directly for you, what we have, or what we want to have, is standardized infrastructure, as I just described. So having ways for you to use something that we consider useful in the context of creating an app backend, creating services, and something that will be easy for you to run. And that's, for me, again, the story of closing the gap and delivering as a vendor what you need. So we don't need to talk about what we think is the best solution, but we provide tools to get the job done. And then the same thing for SDKs and templates. So if we start creating app backends in some cases or dedicated services, you don't want to reinvent the wheel. So again, we as a vendor need to step in and provide tooling that is useful, that is practice proven, that you can run those things in, and that makes it easier for you to get started with its topic. And again, what I want to repeat is, it's an open system. We are opinionated, so of course we are saying we see the market evolving in that direction, but we need to less talk about it and deliver more of the tools for you, and that's what we want to do. And so also to follow up with some practical examples, that's a 6 o'clock portion of the graphic. There is something since last year we are creating already as services and app backends that used to be plugins in the past or that would have been plugins in the past. And so one is, for example, our AI Copilot. To be fair, at this point, it's more or less a fancy proxy, right? So to other AI services, but it has its own pipeline. There's a team responsible for it. It's having its own metrics, so we are measuring and gathering analytics data. We have another example of self-service functionality that will be basically the option for customers to book certain kinds of Shopware plans within Shopware. And also, it's a trivial feature, but I know that would have been a plugin a year ago. And we are creating it as a service because we know it's not necessary for the commerce core. It's not a part that you basically depend on as a community. You don't need to run it in your stack. It's not relevant for you. It's a small thing that we can better provide as an app in this case as a plugin or service extension. Another one is data gateway. So you know, or you should know that we've started collecting data after opt-in so that we are also able to train our own machine learning models on it. And this one is a big service as well. So again, we have teams responsible for it. They are collecting data from the shops. They are processing it. And same thing again, it's an independent service hosted alongside Shopware because no one of you wants to run that thing in your infrastructure alongside your shop, right? And then analytics functionality, so that will be additional analytic options we allow in the admin. And also that thing was a plugin in Shopware 5. And now again, we are creating an app for it because we want to make sure that where it's not essential for the commerce core, we basically go the route we are like preaching and also learn. And as we go, provide tooling that is useful for you. And so that's what's currently happening, what we're discussing about, how we're changing the way we are working together in our teams. And as said, what you will see there is more standardized infrastructure you can use, more templates, SDKs you can use, and also improved API. And I guess that's the right route for us to move further on the topic without forcing anyone to do something that you don't consider useful, but while providing you with tools that are useful if you need to use it. So quickly summed up, so there's this topic of specialized API, like the price example I gave, or vouchers or something like that. For those things, let's create interfaces for you that are easy to use and to plug in instead of creating complicated code paths around it. We have the topic of tooling and guidelines and templates and SDK, so our learning, not in documentation only, but as code, as something that is a useful tool for you to use in your everyday job. So that's the two topics I wanted to follow up on, because I think that's a discussion that is ongoing and that we will see evolving for quite some time. And also something that is worth discussing about, and that's also why we're here today, so that we can have a conversation about those things, that we can learn about your feedback and then adjust the course. Also, I brought some news from the machine room, so to say, and the headline is Unleashing the Core. So that's things we are currently working on that we are planning to bring to the next major version, and that also we think we would like to get your feedback about, that we would talk early about, and then we can have follow-up discussions and see if we can improve on it still. The first one is a very small one, 3 letters actually. It's the return of the ESI tags. And we removed them in Shopware 6, and I always heard people, okay, they were actually quite useful in some cases. I always thought of them like a fancy way to replace 1 request against your server with 10 requests against your server, which is not very smart. But if you use them the correct way, actually they can be useful, obviously. And so we are discussing to use them to basically handle the footer and header portion of Shopware. And that's because I know that many of you like to use the default storefront. It's an efficient and productive way to ship all the changes in one package. There's a lot of knowledge and experience around there, and so we want to further invest on the default storefront, and at the same time rendering because it's so flexible and dynamic, basically because of Twig, rendering it can take quite a load actually, because the header and footer is heavily nested, and so it's a small news, but we will bring ESI tags back to have longer cache times for those things without necessarily having longer cache times for the main page. And I guess that's a good middle ground to use them in a reasonable way for stuff that usually isn't so dynamic in the shop, right? A second topic, and one is, or should also be relevant for many of you, that is a high number of cache invalidations. So who experienced that in their everyday life, that Shopware can generate a lot of cache invalidations? Okay, that's some people, so you will be happy about that one. And for the others, as context, Shopware tries to be very fancy about detecting when an entity was changed and then telling the cache some pages are invalid. And that's a nice convenience method, I guess. But it can also, like for example, if you change the root category in an ad campaign, during an ad campaign, it can be a bit like a nasty situation, because if that is like embedded in breadcrumbs on every page, then every page will be invalidated. And yeah, away is your cache during high load times. And that's not a nice situation. And so we had a look at it, and we identified basically two things that we want to change. The first of which is Shopware trying to be fancy about cache invalidation, so we will talk about that one in a minute. And the second one is actually that there is a double layer of caching, basically, because we have the HTTP cache and we have the data object cache in some cases, and also this has a part in this problem. And what we want to change is basically we want to massively reduce the data object cache, or get rid of it in many cases, so that we can say, if you want to use caching, that is what it is. So that is a system you can use, and there's no double layer complexity. It's just one thing, it's optimized for that, and that's it. And the second of it is that we will reduce automatic cache invalidations. So we only want to do it automatically for critical stuff, and critical in e-commerce by our definition is, for example, prices and in stock, right? So that the customer can see the right prices, that stock is always maintained correctly. And so that will be in our plans the only situation where we actually invalidate automatically, and you can still do it manually if you want to, but the default behavior will be Shopware being less aggressive with cache invalidations. And also we want to bring back, or we want to implement soft purges. If I remember correctly, that's an upstream change in Symfony, right? So it's basically a feature that prevents a nice thing called cache stampede. And if you've seen Jumanji, I don't know if that's still a thing, there's always a situation where all those animals appear and run everything over. That's a stampede. And you can have the same thing for your backend if you want to, by having a cache and then invalidating it suddenly, and then because of runtime topics, hundreds of customers requesting the same item in the same moment, right? That's a pity for the backend. And what you can do about it is having soft purges that will allow basically to still handle over the old cache item to the visitor, because it was still valid a second ago. It will not be so bad, right? And then behind the scenes, you will only generate one fresh page. It's a minor change. It will be optionally, but I also think that could be something interesting, or an interesting change with regards to this whole caching topic. And now we talked a bit much about caching, I guess. So there's also plans how to evolve Shopware further from that, right? And there's one thing I would also really like to get a discussion started, and that's basically something we call read-optimized storage. And the idea here is that instead of using caches in many cases, we will have an optimized system that will, in many cases, prevent or allow you to not use it in the first place, right? And I think with caching generally, it's a bit like, caching is nice to reduce server costs, to scale down the system, and to have a cache that will allow you to do that. But actually, it's not a real answer to scalability. Scalability is, from my perspective, an architectural pattern that the software needs to provide. And Obviously, we had that in the past with our data object storage, but I think we need to have something more proactive. And the discussion we are having, and there's also a GitHub pull request already for that, is basically Shopware using MySQL as a primary database for, I don't know, transactional stuff, admin requests, and so on. And for everything else, we will create an optimized representation. And with optimized, I mean optimized for storefront requests, store API requests, and so on. So storing the products in an optimized way so that we can write them to key value storages. And for those, in many cases, you have guarantees by the providers, if you use, for example, DynamoDB, that they will be able to handle a high number of concurrent requests without any problems. And then the idea or what the implementation we have is for DynamoDB, for MongoDB, and I guess Redis is getting less popular nowadays, but still you can use it, of course. So that's also something we are working on that you can have a look into, and you can find developers here to talk about those things, if it's a smart idea or not, and I guess that's also what we use this day for, to align on the changes we are planning. So let me sum up quickly. We talked about service strategy and about how we want to provide more tooling for you to use it in the right case if you need it in your project. And I said, we're having an opinion. I think that's fair. I think we will see that more and more. But also, I think we need to lead by example, and that's what we are going to do. And also, that's what we want to provide you the tooling for. If you have questions regarding that, there will be a discussion with Jonas and with Sander on the community stage. So you can also learn what this has to do with platform engineering and how we think about those things. We talked about standardized infrastructure and how, for the first time ever, basically, we are providing infrastructure as code. It's still work in progress, so you cannot yet use it, unfortunately. But we will provide infrastructure as code, so you can use it in your project, you can use it wherever we want. We want to make it open source for the community, and I guess that's also a big step forward for us. And then we talked about some core changes we are planning, and I asked about your feedback, basically. And on that note, I want to say we can't do it without you. Those things are changing the way Shopware sees e-commerce, changing the way the Shopware architecture is tailored to the problems we are having. And the problems we are having is something that we need to, together identify in our conversation. So what kind of projects are we seeing? How do we see the e-commerce market evolving? And for those things, I guess it's good that we form a continuous discussion and conversation between the community and us, and so that we can actually have one aligned course between us. And so for that reason, I want to invite you to subscribe to our Review Bazaar. That's a format we're already having, so there's a Review Bazaar where we talk about new features for merchants and invite partners and merchants and the like to learn about them. And what we are planning to do is to also have it for developers. So having a section where we can talk about changes we are currently discussing, that we already did, where we can present them to you, where we can discuss about them, and where you can also tell us that we are on the wrong path. So please scan the QR code. It will be gone in a few seconds. And then make sure to hit the developer checkbox if you want to hang around with the cool folks. So please do that. And then before I hand over to Hans, one last thing. I really want to say thank you that you all are here today. I'm basically excited that we are back in this awesome building and that we get the place we deserve as a community and that we have the possibility to network, and let's make best use of it, right? So thanks a lot. Yeah, thank you. And with these words, over to Hans, who will talk about Room and what it has planned for us.
Thank you. Hi all. So impressive things and pretty cool things we heard. So really happy to be here today. And I'm really into it. And so I would like to say thank you for having me, Shopware. My name is Hans Elstner, and I'm the CEO and founder of Room. And what we are doing is providing a very easy-to-use platform for 3D, augmented, and virtual reality. Some might call it spatial tooling. And we are a Shopware partner. And to say it with the words of some others, what we are doing. So Forbes magazine said about us, wow, Room really kicks ass because it is that easy to create 3D objects, and it is that easy to use it because it runs right on the browser, on any device, no matter how old it is. And so they summed it up with, Room is democratizing the metaverse. A famous analyst called Gartner, they said about Room that Room is the top metaverse management solution provider. And really catchy, I really like that one. So Samsung said after they heard me, so just say, Hans, that you're the WordPress for the metaverse, so possibly, maybe, somehow. We do have a lot of globally recognized customers from various industries that are using our software, and we have an award-winning technology. And for you to remember, and that it's pretty important, Room is written with 3.0 for a reason. Because if you look around online, you really got the feeling that the world is pretty flat, 2D-ish, but it is not. And our vision is that the world online should be also somehow 3D-ish. I would love to underline that. What we provide is a solution with a focus on accessibility for anyone, anywhere, and on any device, just web-based, easy to integrate into Shopware, and it runs even on VR headsets, and that is also important. But what you can do with Room, and that is maybe the most important thing, is to grab the pictures you have of your products, to bring them into Room, and to transform them into a 3D object like it is done here in that example. And that's 10 times faster and simpler as any other way when creating 3D objects. And here's an example of YT Bikes, a customer of Shopware. We got some pictures, some more, and the 3D object was created out of that. You can see that here. It's pretty small. If you would take a picture of that bicycle with your smartphone, it will have more memory needed on your smartphone than that 3D object you can see here. And you can scan the QR code and just place that in augmented reality right next to you, just web-based, without any additional app. So just scan the QR code. Hopefully there is some place that bicycle is not that small. And for those who can't, here is an example how it looked like. And it really helps you customers to understand your product. It has the right size, it has the right colors, so they can check if it fits. So they will be sure that it is the right product for their needs. And you can use the created 3D objects to set up configurators. Change the color, change the different parts, change the size of the bicycle in that example, and try that out to give the customer more confidence. You can even grab it and place it into a showroom. And we do have a bit more than 150 showroom templates inside our system. I'm pretty sure there will be some showroom that is suitable for your needs. You can easily customize them and use avatars if you want to have more gamification and engagement. And here's an example how to customize the showroom inside our system. It's just web-based, just clicking on something, pulling it, changing the color, placing it, adding some more, adding some videos, really easy right in the browser. And the pretty cool thing, it's a bit like, I don't know if you guys know Sims, pretty sure some of you, it's a bit like that. It's pretty easy to use, pretty easy to handle. And you can also use that for adding gamification to your experience. Let them experience the bicycle, choose one, act with some others, and ride, for example, a track with that bicycle to have a better idea. And I'm pretty sure people will be really, really engaged by have that gamification experience inside your shopping solution. So that's pretty cool, really like that. When arriving, getting a better feel, and they will be really, really on it. And they will cheer. Pretty sure. So, as you heard, there are good reasons for using that immersive, spatial 3D stuff into the e-commerce sector. So it's about creating leading shopping experiences. It also increases sales and customer engagement. So we measured a retention time that was 10 times longer than compared with standard pages for the products. You can reach out to new target groups, and it will give you an easy visualization of your products in 3D. It will increase the engagement of employees and their skills, and it will help to reduce the return rates and service costs. So we had shops with a cut-on of 70% of the return rates because of the experience in 3D and augmented reality. You will be able to lead the future of commerce, and you will be able to have a hub for information and assistance with AI avatars. Pretty helpful to help your customers. And as Mark already mentioned, there is a playground, and we not only have a REST API, yes, we do have one, but there's also a live scripting API, so you can play around in real time with the scene, interact, change colors, and do all the amazing stuff. So try it out with our playground and learn more about that. And meet us at our booth at the bar. There will be a portal to the metaverse. It's impressive. And in addition to that, you can also try, if some of you maybe want to, the Apple Vision Pro. We brought it along with us. It's pretty impressive from my perspective. So happy to see you there. Thank you so much. And back to Mark.
Thank you, Hans. Pretty quick from me because I think we're pretty much out of time and I don't want to get into trouble. I just want to say, please, please, please go check out Room down at the booth. It's absolutely awesome. Please go check out the playground. Actually start, write some code. You can get models from Room. You can get them from the internet, etc., etc. As for Daniel and I, it's really, really important that we telegraph where we're going, what we want to do, what our values are, what are the problems we want to solve, and how we want to go solve them, because we really want to make sure we get input and feedback from you, whether that's through the Tech Review Bazaar, or more importantly, face-to-face today, or over the next weeks and months ahead. So please come and talk to Daniel and I. We'll be around. Also, any of the dev team too. So with that, I want to say thank you very much, and see you later.